Pleased to be with you. I didn't get to come last year. I was here a year before last. And so I'm going to have to cover 2 years in one. So maybe I can do that. I hope I can. Save Asian Souls is something I began in 2015, the last part of 2015, because of something I saw 16 years ago down in southern China. I was down in Yunnan province. We were visiting some minority people, and the government agent of the federal government of China was with me. He said, "Ron, do you realize these fathers sell their daughters for $10,000 each?" That disturbed me. It's disturbed me for 16 years. That's the reason I thought I needed to do something. We've been in the mission field since 1984, and we've worked in 4 foreign countries. We're self-supporting, but our work is not self-supporting. Human trafficking is the fastest growing criminal industry in the world, second only to the drug trade. That's one of our girls in Laos, and she's been baptized into Christ, and that's what we want to do. We want to save their lives and save their souls. Every 30 seconds, another girl, like Hong, she's 16 years old in China, just graduated from vocational education, got a job, that's good, but every 30 seconds, another girl becomes a victim of human trafficking. We thought that slavery ended 150 years ago. There are more slaves in the world today than has ever existed in the history of mankind, and it is a horrible slavery. The process it occurs is first recruiters. Recruiters from countries go to Asia, primarily because most of the trafficking is from Asia. 300,000 per year come from Asia to the United States. But they will go into their country. Well, let's take Nepal for an example. Most of the trafficking from Nepal will go to India and to the Muslim countries, Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and the point of distribution is Dubai. So the traffickers, the recruiters, who make about $300,000 to $350,000 a year, will go to the country to find girls between the age of 12 and 20, and the closer they are to 12, the higher the price that he will get for that girl when he sells her to the market. The largest buyer, as I'll show you in the world, is the Russian mafia. They spend about $12 million a year just buying girls around the world for 50 nations. They operate in 50 nations. They're operating in the United States today. And they spend about $7 million of that $12 million in the United States buying girls that will come to the United States because of money, because of the market. But the recruiters is the beginning of the work. Then to transportation. Most of the times, and I'm very glad that ISIS is being defeated, and I think is it Mosul? That's the city. That's the city where they made all the fake documents. They made passports, they made visas, they made all kinds of things, and they sell them to the recruiters who use them to transport the girls, a lot of them to Mexico City, then they come up to the Rio Grande River and come into the United States. Their fake documents are destroyed when they're sold at that point. But ISIS is just about out of business now, so somebody else will have to make the fake documents. So they deliver them to the purchaser, and that's the first time the girls know they're being sold into sex slavery. They don't know it. They're told, you're going to the United States, you marry a rich husband, and you'll never have to work the rest of your life. You'll have it made. Or you're going to the United States to get an education and have a job. Or you're going to whatever country they're from, and they have these promises, which are all fake. So it's coercion, it's deceit, it's lying, it's forced, kidnapping sometimes, all for their main purpose. There are 3 that I know of, auctions that exist around the world. Some of the recruiters will bring their girls to the auction where they're auctioned off. This is the Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, where they're auctioned off. The other 2 auctions that I know of are in Paris, France. Did you see the movie Taken? Anybody see that movie? Okay, it showed an auction scene in Paris, France. That's the second one that I was going to tell you about. The third one is in Prague, Czechoslovakia. I'm sure there are others. They're just not known, at least not to me. One of the largest purchaser of girls is ISIS, and they destroy the girls. after they've destroyed them, they use them as human shields, and they have to take the bullet. But in recent in the recent year, I guess you would say, they have begun to try to sell the girls that they have destroyed on the internet. So I don't know. I hope they failed tremendously. There's a list of major purchasers of sex slaves in the United States. By the way, MS-13, they got 3 of them, I think, yesterday or today. They captured 3 of them in the United States. That is one of the most horrible gangs ever existed. The Russian mafia, though, leads the pack of all those that would be buying. So, average age, 14 years old. And 27 million around the world. Now, these figures are a little old. All these figures come from either the United Nations or the United States Department of State Immigration Services. We don't know exactly. They're all estimates. $36 billion business in 2016. 300,000 that I mentioned to you come into the United States every year. 12 to 14, 15 times a day a girl is sold into sex slavery in the United States. Why are they victims? Organized crime is a major factor. In the brothels of Japan, there's between 120,000 and 150,000 slaves in the brothels of Japan. They have to replace them. After they get into the 20s, they don't want them anymore. They're discarded. And they have to bring new ones in because they want girls as young as they possibly can get them. Usually 12 years old is the most desirable age for them to purchase. So they're constantly, and by the way, in Japan, the brothels, they go to the Philippines. My son is building an orphanage in the Philippines now. That's where they will go to purchase the girls to take them to Japan. False job advertisements. We had a young girl that was baptized into Christ, became a Christian. The results of the Waxahachie Church of Christ, going to Romania every year, working in Romania. She became a Christian. She was poor. She didn't have a family. So she sees an ad in the paper, Paris, France. Come to Paris, France. You'll be trained as a chef. All expenses paid. Well, she doesn't have a job, never has had a job. She fell for it. She went to Paris, France. And it wasn't long, though, till she realized she was going to be sold into sex slavery. She's a Christian. She jumped out of a second-story window and landed on the pavement. If it had not been for a policeman close by getting her to the hospital, she would not be alive today. But she was not going to be sold into slavery. Misleading friendship. A recruiter will come in and say, oh, will you go to dinner with me tonight? Oh, you need a new dress, new shoes, and a purse. And he buys those for her. He's investing because he knows he's going to sell her. If she goes to an Arab country, $15,000. If she goes to some other countries, approximately $10,000 if she's sold to a Russian, the Russian mafia in Russia. So they are hooked in the web, and their lives are destroyed. Families sell their children. I mentioned that in China. Kidnapped, later sold into slavery. A girl was kidnapped in Kathmandu. One shot in the neck, Demerol, probably, I don't know what they use, and they just become a zombie. They're still conscious. So he's able to get her on a flight from Kathmandu to Dubai. But then they found the fake documents, and they arrested him. But very few are ever convicted. Very few ever go to prison. They pay off officials, and they get free. And they sent her back to Kathmandu. Some women unknowingly will marry the recruiter. When he gets them back to the country, he sells them. And poverty and gender discrimination are very major factors in this business. We thought we'd seen the most horrible poverty that ever existed in the world in China. No. Down in the Mekong River Delta area, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, Thailand. Horrible, horrible poverty. When the girls don't have a job, they don't have medical care, they don't have a functional family, they don't have a family like us in a congregation, they don't have income, they will fall into the trap. So poverty has a big factor. One of the girls we took into our safe house in Nepal said the only food that she had was what she could find in the forest. That's all she had. Another girl went to work, I'll show you her, for a family because she wanted a place to sleep and wanted food. And she went to work for the family, and then he began to rape her on a regular basis. So she had to get away from that, went back to her uncle. But I was conducting a Bible class there about a couple of months ago, and she was in the class. I noticed she had already been branded on the arm. That means she's a slave. Usually they will brand them across the chest. If you go to my website, you'll see a woman that has been branded across the chest. And that means I am owned. I'm a slave of a certain person. And that's horrible. The poverty is part of the reason. Gender discrimination in Asia, a female just does not have the same value as a male. I was talking to my man in Memphis, Tennessee, at the School of Preaching today, and we got one child going back last week. We try to do 12 open heart surgeries a year, and he just had open heart surgery. We sent him back to China, and we have another one coming in, and we had a problem with the U.S. Embassy. It seems that they're cracking down on anybody coming into the United States. They will not even let us bring the mother with the child because they're afraid she'll stay in the United States. So we're going to have to get someone to bring the child over. American Airlines flies all our patients back and forth free of charge. Airline ambassadors will provide us a flight attendant to go and pick the child up. But we have to have someone in Memphis, Tennessee, at Le Bonheur Hospital, where the surgery is going to be completed, that speaks Mandarin Chinese. So we think we have it worked out. But most of those boys, I was thinking about that today, most are boys. We don't bring many girls for open heart surgery because they don't really care if they die. So that's kind of sad, but that's what it is. Coming to America, the land of opportunity, the land of money, that's what happens. That's the reason a large percentage of will come to America or to a Muslim country. All money, easy come, easy to buy, easy to pay the biggest prices for the girls that will be coming into those countries. So our goal is to rescue teens between the age of 12 and 20, all females at this time. Now, when we work in Thailand, we're going to have to address the problem of boys selling themselves on the streets of Bangkok, Thailand. I hate Bangkok. And yet, every time I fly in and out anywhere else down in that area, I have to go through Bangkok. It's like Atlanta. You have to go there to go for change planes from heaven to hell. No, you change planes in Atlanta. Well, you have to do it in Bangkok also. So I kind of dislike Bangkok. It's a city of 12 million people. It's the same size as Beijing, China. So it's a very busy place. But a safe house is where we keep the girls. I originally wanted to have them in Christians' homes as foster children. But the poverty in these countries is so severe, they can't do it. We give them Bible teaching. They get up about 6:30 in the morning, and they have devotional. After devotional, they have breakfast. Then they have to start the Bible classes, have a Bible class. Everyone goes to the Bible class, every girl. Then they have lunch at 10:30. I had to get used to eating rice at breakfast, and then again at 10:30. And then again that night, 3 times a day. But I adjusted. And then they have another Bible class. Then they go to vocational education, and I'll show you the vocational education for the different countries. And ladies, be sure you look at our display out here and look at the embroidery that the girls make in Laos. It is beautiful, and they can make a living just making that embroidery. Girls in Nepal are learning to sew. We will follow up with the girls and make sure that they're faithful to God. I think we had 2 more baptized Sunday. I think 30-something, 30, 32 or 3, I can't remember exactly. Pat keeps up with that. Girls had been baptized in Nepal and 9 in Laos, or more, I can't remember. But we'll follow up with the girls to be sure they remain faithful to the Lord's church. So we're working in Nepal, 2 safe houses, 35 congregations of the Lord's church, about 1,200 members of the Lord's church in Nepal. Our ministers of Nepal are our ground workers who are in every village and city, and they're looking for the girls. When they find a girl that looks like she's vulnerable to trafficking, they call Lakendra, who's at our heads up all of our work. I'll show him to you later. And he goes and does an evaluation and sends me the evaluation. I approve for him to take her in, or I have not turned one down, not a single one. The Philippines, son building the orphanage there. Thailand, have a man going from Florence, Alabama to Thailand in October to see about a facility, a safe house in southern Thailand. Then we'll have to have one in Bangkok. Well, they'd have one in northern Thailand because Thailand is a long, narrow country that runs all the way from, I think, China border all the way down to the ocean. A very long country. So it's going to take 3 safe houses. Cambodia, we need workers. Laos, we have 1 safe house, and we're ready to start a second one now. We are ready to rent another building until we get the construction completed on the additional new safe house. And we'll have sponsors all over the United States that will send $30 a month. I appreciate the sponsors in this congregation who are sponsoring girls, because your $30 pays for their food, clothing, vocational education. It pays for everything, medical care. When I was there, one of the girls was in the hospital. I had to go visit her in the hospital. We paid all of her expenses while she was in the hospital, so it covers the cost. We hope maybe we can have saved 200 girls by the end of this year. These are some of the girls that we were caring for in China. I don't have pictures of all the girls. These are some. The girl with the stripe, Lu Hong Dan, number 9. Her father purchased her mother from Vietnam because in China there's not enough women for all the men. 50 million men don't have wives in China. So that's quite a big problem. Her father passed away. Her mother married another man in China because there are plenty of men to marry. But that's her history. She's been baptized and a member of the Lord's Church. There's Hong, again, number 26. She's just graduated from vocational school, has a job. Shushaming, number 25, is also in vocational school. But those are 2 attractive young girls. One's 16, Hong is 16, and Shushaming is 17, that would bring $15,000 if a recruiter got to them and sold them into a Muslim country. That means that would make him a lot of money. So we're trying to protect these girls as much as we can. It's Lily and George. They're workers for me in China. Lily was an orphan. We came in contact with her about at least 10 years ago. She even worked for me in the United States, going from hospital to hospital to hospital. As soon as I'd bring a patient from China, she'd be there to greet the child, whether it's in Texas or Tennessee or New Orleans or wherever, or the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, where we do the most complicated open heart surgeries. She'd be there to meet the child. She'd stay with the child until the surgery is completed, and they'd go back to China. Then she would go to the next city. I'd have another one brought to the next city, like San Antonio. That's where we had a surgery 3 weeks ago. And she would be there to care for them. But during that period of time, I realized she needed more Bible training. She didn't know the scriptures as well as I wanted her to know the scriptures to teach the children. So I sent her to Four Seas Bible School in Singapore, the Church of Christ Preacher Training School. But I was training her to be a preacher's wife and didn't know it. She met George down there, and they fell in love and are married and are working in Wuhan, China now. They see the difference now. You can see a difference in the girls by the country. These are Laotian girls. They're from Laos. Vientiane, Laos is the capital of Laos. Our actual safe house, first safe house, is low down, or down low. I can't remember which it is. I was out there. I know it's a horrible road to get there, and that's where these girls live. I think all the girls have been baptized in Laos, I think, haven't they? As far as we know, all the girls in our safe house in Laos have been baptized into Christ. I think the last 2 were baptized a few weeks ago. These are girls. Now you see the difference in appearance. These are girls from Nepal. That's where we have the largest number of girls in Nepal. One of the reasons is I have a good staff. I have 7 good workers, and I have 35 ministers. That makes it a lot easier for us to work in Nepal. So we have a good base. The girl on the top right in the yellow is the girl that went to work for a family, and she was branded, and now she's in our safe house. And I noticed in the Bible classes when I was teaching, she would have more questions than all the other girls put together. And we just had a lady from Westbury Christian Schools in Houston, Texas. She goes to one of our locations every summer and works with the girls. So she's just been there, and she confirmed when I talked to her. I called her the other day. I see if she's over the jet lag before she has to go back to teaching school. She said she wasn't over it yet. I know what she means. And she said that, let's see, Ganga, that's her name, Ganga, is one of the best Bible students she's ever seen in her life. There's some more girls. The lower left hand on the far side is the girl that was in the hospital when I was there. I did visit her in the hospital, and she was out and released very soon. That's where Ganga lived with her uncle. And, of course, it looks kind of like a pig pen in the United States, but that's where she lived. I'm afraid we don't, in the United States, we don't understand poverty. We think poverty is being on food stamps. Well, this is a far, far extreme from what you might consider poverty in the United States. We found a girl in that grass shack there, and we have her in the safe house now. There's another girl found last 2 weeks ago, I think, and there's some question about her coming to the safe house. It seems that her father does not want her. She has a father. By the way, in Nepal, the biggest problem with the family is that the men are all alcoholics, and the wife leaves them, but she leaves the children with him, and she goes into another country to work, to make a living. These girls don't have a chance in the world with an alcoholic father, and this is the case probably with this girl here. It's our safe house, the first safe house we had in Nepal. It's a 3-story building. We housed 35 girls approximately in that safe house. It's crowded. It's really too many. That's the reason we went to a second safe house, which will house 80 girls. And we're in the process of getting some of the girls moved to that one, and the new girls will come into this safe house instead of the old safe house. There they are, getting out of the taxi cab, going down the walk. We have walls around both the safe houses, a gate guard at the entrance, so that there is security for the girls. So you can see the fence. They're walking down to the safe house at that point. Inside the safe house, that was back sometime in the beginning, 2 beds to the room. Well, I said, you have to get bunk beds, because we have to take care of these girls. I cannot stand to see them go into a Muslim country, because when they are sold to a Muslim country, their lifespan is reduced to 5 to 7 years, and they're dead. They do not live very long. So I got an email from him after we went to bunk beds. He said, could we go to 3-level beds? I said, no, that's a little too much. Too many girls in a short space there. Our house mother in Nepal at the first safe house is a member of the Lord's Church. She's been a member of the Lord's Church for 17 years. Her husband passed away, and she works in the safe house. And the girls love her as if she were her mother, because they've never really had a mother in most cases. They don't know hygiene. They don't know things that your daughters would automatically learn. They don't know these things. So that's one of the reasons I sent the lady from Houston, Texas, to teach the girls the very basics of life. That's my staff in Nepal. Lukendra on the far right, Rangshi on the far left. Rangshi will be over the second safe house that will have 80 in it. And then the house mother, the Bible teacher, and then the others are cooks and assistants. That is the Himalayan Bible Institute. Both of the men that I have working it for me graduated from the Himalayan Bible Institute. It is overseen by the Commerce Church of Christ in Commerce, Georgia. It is a very good school. I lived in a little small building right next to the Himalayan Bible Institute, kind of a guest house, and I was very happy to be able to stay there. Those are the girls that were ready to go to sewing class, and they made their own clothing. They all wear purple at the sewing class, and you'll see them in a few minutes at the sewing class. There they are, working at the sewing class. Ladies, if you recognize those sewing machines, uh-oh, you're telling your age. I was in Florence, Alabama a few weeks ago, and a woman saw this, and she came up to me afterwards. She said, I've got a sewing machine. Would you take it and take it to Nepal? I said, it cost me more to get it to Nepal than I can buy one over there. She said, and she got me again out in the lobby, please take my sewing machine. Well, these are old pedal machines, but we do have some for them to practice on at the safe house that are electric. So they're going to come up. But they don't have patterns. They have to make their own patterns for the clothes that they make. And they make all of their own clothing. Now, that's the worship assembly. And the minister tried to give me a hard time, because he came to me and he said, Ron, you're causing a lot of problems for my congregation. Well, now that upsets me. I said, what kind of problems? He said, every 2 weeks I have to go buy more chairs. I'm going to keep on creating problems for you. On the far side, all the women sit. On the other side, the men sit. They don't sit together. They separate. And I've seen that in almost every Asian country. They don't sit together. The men sit on one side, the women sit on the other side. Well, the women's got them way outnumbered. It's 20 to 80%. The average Church of Christ in the United States is 60% women, 40% men. And you know why the men are given the leadership in the church? God gave them the leadership. He was hoping they'd keep up with the women. Better go on. Here's another picture of the worship service or Bible class. I believe that was a Bible class. I got that labeled wrong. Now, this kind of disturbs me. We try to give them girls some opportunities to do something. They have never been outside of their village. So we took them down to the safari park, and yet the flood hit there Sunday and has destroyed the park almost completely. They used the elephants to evacuate, I think, maybe 100 or 200 tourists from the park. When you go to the park, you have a choice. You can go through the park on an elephant or on a jeep. And well, all the girls wanted to go on the elephant, so they went on the elephants. Those elephants were used just Sunday to evacuate many tourists from that safari park. The girls really enjoyed going and seeing the park. That's my staff, part of my staff. That's Chris Carroll. He's from Hot Springs, Arkansas, and he is in Vientiane, Laos. And that's his family. He has 4 children and a wife that he has in Vientiane. And he has an English service in Vientiane in his home, and I preached there one Sunday. This is just a wonderful, wonderful couple. They're the house parents at Danlong, it is, Vientiane. That's about a 1-hour drive out. Well, it's not really not that far a drive, but you're dodging potholes and you're trying to not get stuck as you go out there because the roads are horrible. But anyway, it's about an hour outside of Vientiane. Our new facility and the rented facility that we're going to start bringing girls into in Laos is in the city. He's the minister at the local congregation there. It's a communist country. And I've always been cautious in communist countries because there's definitely danger to a Christian. In Laos, 11 years ago, the church was raided. Men and women were both arrested. All the women were released, but every man but one spent 3 years in prison. 3 years in prison for their faith. So, you know, here's a man and his wife, the members of another congregation that was not raided, out in the rural area. That's probably the reason. There are the most dedicated people. And I find that people that live with persecution are very dedicated people. And when China just keeps on tightening down more persecution of Christians, what was going to happen? The church is going to grow more because of persecution. They're great people. This is Hong and his wife. His father was the only male that was not sent to prison for 3 years. They put him in prison. They found out he was an alcoholic, typical of males in Asia, and they let him go. They said, we don't need him here. Hong was a boy back that year. He's only about 30-something years old, and he's going to be my house parent, he and his wife, at the new facility, which is going to cost about $50,000, and I've raised $50,000 to build the facility. That's the congregation. All the girls in blue are members of the congregation. The safe house is just the little part to the right. You just see through the edge of it. I'll show you part of the expansion. We just expanded the safe house so we could take in more girls. The dog is not a member of the congregation as far as I know. Here are the girls that make the embroidery that you'll see out front. It is very time-consuming, but they can make a good living just making the embroidery. Almost every girl getting married in Laos will want some of their embroidery. Go around the cuffs of her dress, go around her neck, go around her waist. Ladies, be sure and look at it if you have a chance. There they are washing dishes. Cold water, no soap. So you wonder why I had food poisoning when I came back? It took me 3 weeks to recover from the trip. I had food poisoning, I had a respiratory infection, and I had jet lag. 3 strikes, you're out. That's the addition to the safe house. It's just been completed. The girls have just moved into it this week, if they met the schedule that was proposed. That's our new lot where the construction of the new safe house is going to be. The property is given to us. She's dead now, but she was a member of the Viet Thanh Lao Church of Christ. She gave us the property, which is right inside, very good site, and a very nice area where we will build the facility. But until that time, we have a rented place. What is the value of one soul in God's sight? Priceless. Priceless. You can't place a value on a soul. Ganga, being baptized into Christ by Lokendra, there she is immersed into Christ. Her life will be so different. It is already different. When she first came to the safe house, she was kind of depressed. And I would be too if I'd been through what she'd been through. She's been a slave ever since she was 10 years old. Horrible, horrible life. Abused, unbelievable. There's baptisms of two other girls. There's baptism of 5 girls that were baptized that day. Then on July the 5th, 3 more were baptized. He's the director of the preacher training school and the minister of the congregation that told me I was creating too many problems for the congregation. But he's okay. And 3 girls there were baptized on July the 5th, and Sunday, 2 or 3. Was it 2, Pat? I think it was 3 girls were baptized into Christ on Sunday, making a total, I think, about 41 baptisms in the past 8 to 10 months in Asia. These are baptisms down in Laos. They have a very nice baptistry, just like up in Nepal at the preacher training school. A very nice baptistry. And this Jew is being baptized on the left. I don't know the name. I couldn't see her face. Bula is standing between her and the camera, and I couldn't see her face. I don't know. I think she's one of the newer girls, so I probably wouldn't know her anyway. This is some of our open heart surgeries. These are open heart surgeries that are completed at La Bonheur Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. All of our surgeries are paid for by the Rotary Club Gift of Life program in La Bonheur Hospital. In Texas, all of our surgeries are paid for by Heart Gift Foundation. The Mayo Clinic, all of the surgeries are paid for by the Mayo Clinic Foundation. Mayo Clinic has 3 hospitals: Jacksonville, Florida, Phoenix, Arizona, and in Rochester, Minnesota. There's another open heart surgery. These children have already returned back to China. That's a surgery completed in China, but these are cleft palate surgery. We've done over 1,000 cleft palate surgeries in the past 20 years. There's one that was just completed last week, a very bad cleft palate. That's Jackie Fong. He's at the Memphis School of Preaching. I baptized Jackie in 2004. And he's already been to the Singapore 4Cs school. This is a Church of Christ school. Nice. It's at Memphis School of Preaching. He's worked for me for 10 years. I'm 80 years old, and I'm not going to be around a long time. So I need somebody to step in to take over the work. And I'm not going to retire, no. But I might become disabled, or I might have to go home. So he'll be ready to take over the work. He'll do a great job. He's a wonderful Christian man. That's the $50,000. I don't need to leave that one in anymore. 100 years from now, it will not matter what my bank account was, or the sort of house I lived in, or the car I drove. But the soul of a young girl may be saved because I was important in saving her from destroying her life and her soul. 2 little boys are walking down the beach, and all of these starfish are washed up on the beach. One little boy reaches down, he picks up a starfish, and he throws it back into the ocean. And the other little boy said, "You can't save all the starfish on the beach." He said, "I saved that one." We know we cannot stop human trafficking. Read 1 Timothy chapter 1, about verse 10. Slave traders are listed. It's been around a long time, and it's not going to end tomorrow or anytime soon. So I can save a few girls. I can save their lives and save their souls. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for listening. I don't have any time for questions, do I? It's gone. That's what I thought. Okay. That's our website. If you want to keep up with our work, you can go to our website, and you can also sign up out front for a notice when the changes are made to the website, like I'll post the baptisms of the girls Sunday on the website, probably. Thank you very much. I think we all realize that there's a tremendous decline in religion in the United States. In fact, a report was completed recently that the greatest decline in religion has occurred during the past 8 years. And that's disturbing. We in the Church of Christ are experiencing the same thing. Approximately 500,000 adherents to the Church of Christ are no longer part of our fellowship or no longer attend services. Over 500 churches have closed their buildings and have the buildings up for sale now. And that trend is not going to change. It's going to continue. But there's something that is even more disturbing than the decline in religion and the decline in the churches of Christ. That's the fact that the world is having an influence upon the Lord's church. And it's not a good influence. It's a bad influence. God never intended for the world to come into the church. It was God's plan, I would say, according to if we read in the scriptures, that the church would be a constant influence to the world and would change the world for the better, of course. We know that the Christian life is the best life that any human being can live on this earth. And this family, this church, is the greatest institution that has ever been established. And religion is important to us and important to our family. I'll give you some examples of what I'm saying, that the world is coming into the church. And I have figures. This come from the Pew Research Institute, who does a lot of religious surveys, and they're pretty accurate. And they did a survey of the churches of Christ and asked them about truth. What is the truth? Abortion, LGBTQ. I can't even remember, I just like saying the alphabet now. And asked them about evolution, a lot of different questions. And the percentages for the churches of Christ members is lower than the average for the United States. Let's take the average for the United States. The question was, what is truth? Well, almost 70% of the American people say there is no truth. Truth is determined by where you were born, what you experienced in life, and many different things. That's your truth. So one man's truth is not another man's truth. Well, in the churches of Christ, that percentage is only about 38%. But that's disturbing to me, that 38% of our members of the Lord's body don't know what truth is. God's word is the truth. And God says it is the truth. Thy word is the truth. When Jesus was talking to Pilate, Pilate, of course, was like the world. What is truth? You know, I could just hear him saying it. Then the next one, abortion. In the Lord's church today, 28% approximately think, yes, abortion is okay. A woman should have a right to make a decision whether she murders her baby or not. 28%. Another question, LGBT. You know, they're going to come in someday and cause problems for us probably. But you wouldn't think that anybody in the Lord's church would say, welcome them in and fellowship them and don't ask questions, just make them a part of your congregation like the denominations are doing. Regretfully, I've forgotten the exact percentage. It's something like 27 or 28% of the members of the Lord's church say, yes, we should accept them in and have fellowship with them without baptism, without anything. Let them believe what they want to believe, because truth for them is what they believe. Evolution is even taught in some of the public schools today. And in the world today, well, not the world, in the United States today, the percentage who believe that evolution is a fact is 60-something%. 60-something%. In the Lord's church, it's only about 16% who actually believe that evolution is not a theory, but a fact. But even in the Lord's church, 28% believe that the Big Bang Theory happened and God controlled it, and it's called theistic evolution. 28% of our brothers and sisters in Christ. I don't have enough time to go into any more. But what I'm saying is this. We must be careful as the Lord's church that we don't let the world continue to have an influence upon us which will destroy us as the Lord's church, because the Lord will not recognize us as the Lord's church when we deviate so far from the truth that there's no correlation between the two. It's disturbing. So, Peter, in 2 Peter, said, I know that you know the truth. I know you know God's word, basically what he was saying, depending on the translation you read. He said, I'm going to remind you until I die. I'm going to remind you. I want to remind you today, our goal is to influence the world and not let the world come in and influence us and destroy us. That's our goal. If you're subject to the invitation, you have it tonight. Maybe you need the prayers of the congregation. Maybe you never become a Christian. Would you come while together we stand and sing?